In this video, I will be attempting to survive 100 days in Antarctica in hardcore Minecraft. This means I'll have to survive the extreme cold weather, the aggressive wildlife, and the mythical folklore of the icy continent. But I won't be starting this video on the mainland. Instead, I'll be starting it all the way over here on the island of South Georgia, where I'll have to build a ship and sail down to Antarctica. But with that being said, let's get started. Now before we get into this video, let's talk about today's sponsor, and that is of course, NameHero. NameHero offers premium Minecraft hosting for an affordable price. Look, I've been through a lot of different Minecraft server hosting companies, and not only have I rarely ever gotten lag with one of NameHero's servers, but it's also really reasonably priced. But on top of that, and arguably the most important part for me, is the fact that it's really easy to set up a server with NameHero. Their console is very user-friendly, which is super important to me. And let's say you do need some help setting up a server. Well, they have customer support ready 24/7 on their website. And look, they're sponsoring me, so I have every reason to say that their product is good. So if you don't believe me, well, take a look at some of these reviews. Yeah, needless to say, if you want to play Minecraft with your friends and you need a reliable and affordable server host, NameHero is the one that you should go to. Either way, a big thanks to NameHero for sponsoring this video, and with that being said, let's get started with day. I spawned in on one of South Georgia's bays, and could instantly tell that this was going to be a tough one. So I'll tell you right now, the biggest issue that I'm going to have is the lack of trees, because I don't see a single tree around here. Let's get some kelp, actually. Well, no, I can't even cook the kelp. I need wood for that, to get a furnace. I approached some of the wildlife, but as soon as I saw these leopard seals, I decided to keep my distance. With no other option, I began to collect blocks. I then made my way across the mountainside. Eventually, I found this grassy area. So I headed over to it, but as I did, I was approached by this leopard seal. Hey, are we friends? We're good? Why are you charging at me? Luckily for me, leopard seals are very clumsy on land, so I was able to get away. Anyways, as I collected some moss blocks, I realized that I really needed food. So I headed to the shore, where I found these mussels. Okay, I should not have eaten that. Yeah, they made me sick, but it was the only food that I could eat. So after eating whatever mussels I could find, I then headed further up the terrain, where I would start on my shelter. The sun set over South Georgia. Which happens to be one of the most isolated islands in the world. This island has no permanent human population, but it does have a rather fascinating history, stemming from the whaling outposts established here in the 19th and 20th centuries. However, today only one notable settlement remains on the island, so if I have any hopes of leaving South Georgia, I'll have to find it. But for now, I just finished my makeshift shelter. And yeah, I simply waited here for the night. Today, I decided to head along the coast, in search of this remote settlement. However, I was now on the verge of hypothermia, and I was starving. Luckily for me, my search didn't last long, because when I entered the bay next door, I found the settlement. This is Grytviken, an old whaling station that dates back to 1904. This settlement has seen some history, as the whaling industry was quite a fatal one. But even beyond its grim origins, Grytviken once housed Sir Ernest Shackleton, one of the most important and remarkable explorers in Antarctic history, whose final resting place is right here in the Grytviken Cemetery. However, more recently, Grytviken was the site of a conflict between Argentina and Great Britain, who have conflicting claims over South Georgia. Today, the island remains under British control, but this is just one example that we'll see regarding the fight for the territories within and surrounding Antarctica. As I approached the old whaling station, I had my sights set on finding wood. And sure enough, within this building, I found just that. So I quickly made this crafting table, which I used to craft a wooden pickaxe. I then used that pickaxe to mine some stone. From there, I crafted stone tools and a furnace. As I began to cook my kelp, I noticed that there were plenty of cobwebs around. So I made a sword and started collecting string. I used that string to craft wool, although I didn't have enough for wool clothes yet. So I decided to go ahead and explore the rest of the settlement. And it wasn't long before I found a room full of beds. Yeah, so far Grytviken has been quite helpful. As the sun began to set, I approached this historic church. Inside, I took down all of the cobwebs and collected some string from them. After waking up the next morning, I went ahead and crafted a fishing rod, as I needed food. While I was at it, I crafted a wool hood, which will help a little bit with the cold. I then headed down to the water and started fishing. As I fished, I noticed that there was a rundown ship in front of me. I figured that I might be able to use this ship in order to reach Antarctica. After all, I'll have to sail all the way down to the Antarctic Peninsula, and that's when my main objective will begin. See, in this video, I will be sailing all the way around Antarctica, and along the way, I'll be stopping at 5 different research stations. Each of them has an objective for me to complete. So yeah, I'll need a sturdy ship for this journey. Anyways, I caught some krill and cooked it, before then crafting water bottles and using them to fill my thirst bar. I still had one more building to explore here, so I went ahead and approached it. Inside, I found some decent loot in these barrels. Yeah, I even found some iron. I also destroyed all of the campfires, as I could use the charcoal for my ship fuel later on. Speaking of which, I then headed over to the ship to see if it'd be usable for the voyage. And yeah, definitely not. So I began to tear it apart. And the next morning, I got to work on crafting the functional blocks of the ship, like the helm and the engine. I started with the engine because I remembered seeing a blast furnace in this room. So after borrowing that, I headed over to the adjacent bay in order to grab some sand. While I was over here, I noticed that whenever I'm swimming, I end up getting hypothermia. So yeah, maybe I should not swim. I headed back and crafted my ship engine. Only now, I needed to craft the helm, and that required 1 gold bar. Yeah, it's time to do some mining. After having no luck at all, I decided to focus on building my ship. I'll need something that can weave through massive icebergs that I'll face later on in the video, so I decided to go with a modest sailboat. By the end of the day, I had built up most of the base, and on day 6, I continued my boat building. Only as I did, I saw some orcas enter the bay. Yeah, I know from my Iceland video that I should not mess with these guys, and it looked like they were about to do some hunting. See, as it turns out, the only known predator of leopard seals is the killer whale, and that was soon apparent. This one orca got itself stuck on land, so I went over to push it back in the water. Only that's when these 2 leopard seals started approaching me. Yeah, I tried climbing on these whale bones to get away, but I still ended up getting way too close to one. So I just decided to do some mining. Today I found some iron, but no gold. However, I still wasn't safe for the day, as I started to freeze in the mines. Yeah, with no other option, I just ran. I decided to head into this building, and that actually ended up working. While I was here, I crafted some wool leggings. Yeah, I'm really hoping to leave this island soon. On day 7, I focused entirely on the ship. I layered it with a lot of wood, before then adding this birch trim around the top. I also spent the entirety of the next day working on this thing. But on day 9, as I mined some more, I finally did find gold. This was huge, as I could now craft my helm. I finished out the day by collecting some string from within these old oil tanks. I also finished my ship today. Well, minus the sail. That meant that day 10 would be my last day here in South Georgia. I added some storage inside my ship, as well as the engine, before then crafting a lot of floaters. Yeah, these blocks will keep my ship afloat, which is, well, kind of important. I also decided that I can just do the sail later, as physics work differently in Minecraft. I took one last look around Grytviken, knowing that I won't be seeing any other buildings for quite some time. I then headed onto my boat and tested it out. Alright, moment of truth. Not bad. As Grytviken faded into the distance, my southern voyage had officially begun. Now the plan is to sail directly southeast, where I'll not only reach the peninsula, but I'll also be able to avoid the infamous Drake Passage this way, which is known as one of the most violent stretches of ocean in the world. As I headed along the route, I filled my engine with the charcoal that I had collected. However, the first of many obstacles was about to present itself. As the next morning, I found myself in a field of ice. Yeah, there was so much ice here, but I knew this would be nothing compared to Antarctica. So to avoid getting stuck, I slowly sailed beside it, making my way around South Georgia. Soon enough, I'd made it below the island, meaning that there was nothing but ocean and icebergs between me and the icy continent. However, before I fully left the island, I wanted to get some more snow, so I could construct my sail along the way. I was now in the open ocean, which meant that my resources are officially limited. After a bit of sailing, I decided to go ahead and work on my sail. See, I wanted this to be a big triangular sail, but I'm not great at geometry when it comes to building. So I took inspiration from this thumbnail, made by the channel Lord Docker. I was able to get most of it done by sunset, and yeah, I was really liking it so far. But to make up for lost time, I decided to sail through the night. A storm rolled through the next morning, but all it really did was just make me cold. Eventually, the storm did clear, and I simply continued my sailing. Once again, I pushed through the night. And my nighttime sailing soon paid off, as when the sun rose, I saw icebergs. Soon enough, I could confirm that I had reached Antarctica. Now it was time to see if my sailboat could weave through the icebergs. See, my current goal is to reach the mainland of the peninsula, where I'll find the first research station, which is Rothera. However, in order to do that, I would still have to weave through plenty of icebergs, which now proved to be a problem. Yeah, I had gotten stuck. So I headed down to the ice and worked on freeing the ship. While I was here, I noticed that I was really low on health and food. So I went ahead and did some fishing. And of course my curiosity got the better of me. Yeah, I absolutely hated this. For those of you who don't know, I am very afraid of deep ocean water. And there's always been something about Antarctica's waters that has freaked me out even more. So yeah, I headed back up to my sailboat and continued my voyage. And that night, I saw what I believe is a minke whale. Next morning, I finally reached the peninsula. Only as I approached this island ahead of me, I saw that it was absolutely covered in penguins. And this told me just where I was. Here in the Weddell Sea lies an island that is almost completely covered in snow, but it's the colony of emperor penguins that makes this a proper spectacle. This colony here is one of the largest colonies of emperor penguins in the world, with population estimates even surpassing 10,000 in some years. And despite this island being quite hard to reach in real life, you can still visit it on Antarctic expeditions, given that the weather allows it. However, in order to protect the penguins, visitors have to keep their distance. But this is Minecraft. So naturally, I decided that for this episode, I'll be having an emperor penguin as my companion. I didn't have a lead though, nor would I be able to craft one. So I had to get creative. I built this bridge across the island, and then I went to craft a boat. However, that's when I realized that I was out of wood. So I took some wood from my sailboat and crafted one, before then heading over to the colony and escorting a penguin to my sailboat. I think I'll call you Edward. You seem very Edward to me. Edward and I sailed further along the Antarctic mainland, and I once again sailed through the night. However, the next morning I saw something really strange on this mountainside. Yeah, okay. Yeah, alright, we're just gonna keep sailing. We're just gonna keep sailing. Shortly after, I ended up getting stuck in the ice. And yeah, it looked like there was a lot of ice ahead. So I hopped out and got to clearing. Only that's when another leopard seal came my way. With nowhere else to go, I jumped in the water, but it swam after me. Yet, I was able to outswim it. And as it turns out, that was all thanks to this hourglass dolphin. Yeah, I was really happy to see this guy, as hourglass dolphins are extremely rare. This was a really cool sighting. But I had to finish clearing some ice, which I did. I then continued to sail along the peninsula, with hope that I was nearing Rothera. I sailed through the entirety of day 18, without any notable encounters or events. But on day 19, I did end up passing one of Antarctica's fascinating landmarks. These mountains may not look like much, but they're actually a part of the caldera of an underwater volcano. Yeah, this is one of the only places in the world where you can sail right into the center of a volcano. So I did just that, before then continuing my search for Rothera Station. However, I didn't realize that this search would take up the next 2 days. Yeah, during these days, I mostly just sailed along the peninsula. Although I did see a humpback whale. Finally though, after following the mainland for quite some time, I spotted the base on day 22. I approached this large blue building, and I soon saw someone in the window. Hello? I then went around to the entrance, where I noticed that this building needed a keycard. Keycard required. Now, I could just mine through this, but we'll go along. We'll find the keycard. So I went out and tried to find one. As I explored the other buildings, I took some books and some wood. I also saw plenty of researchers along the way. But it wasn't until that evening that I would find both a supply of food and a key card. Rothera is a British station here in Antarctica. Its specialty is biological research. And in the summer, you can find around 100 people working here, whereas in the winter months, you'll find just around 20. Regardless, it's an impressive facility conducting very helpful research. But I was here to find a quest. So the next morning, I headed over and used my new keycard to get into the large building. Now I just had to find where my quest was. Alright, where's my objective? Hello. Hi there, Mumbo. As I headed up to the second floor, I found what had to be my objective. Edward. Wait a minute, that's my penguin's name. What brings you here? Research. While we're in the middle of a crisis, our Mount Massive Summit team has been unresponsive. We're sending a group out to check on them shortly. I'm guessing that this is going to lead to me going to the mountain. They also had that backpack full of important materials. Alright, now I'm interested. Because of the safety of the team. Yeah. Excuse me, I was... Alright, anyways. Last heard from Summit Team about 48 hours ago. We have one GPS chip directed to their camp. We will set out in teams of 4 to 5 people. Is this the chip? Yeah? Okay, yeah, so that is pointing somewhere. So essentially, it looks like I'll be doing a one-man rescue mission, which will take place all the way over on Mount Vinson, which is the tallest mountain in Antarctica. But before I head out, I wanted to get some wood. Next morning, as I went to leave, I saw what looked like a tractor or something. I figured that I could use this to traverse the Antarctic terrain more efficiently, but I would have to find a way to get it onto my boat. So I went and cleared as much of a path as I could for my sailboat, before then bringing it towards the shore. From here, I collected a lot of blocks, and used them to build a bridge across the water. Yeah, this took all day. But as the sun began to set, I drove my new vehicle across the bridge. Only, I had to be extremely careful, as if this thing falls in the water, I likely won't be able to save it. Yeah, I had a few close calls, but the worst part by far was this turn. Eventually, I made it up and onto my ship. I could now properly begin my hunt for Vinson Massif. So, once I had sailed out of the icebergs, I pulled the GPS compass out and established my heading. Not much happened for the rest of the day. Yeah, it was just a lot of sailing. As I approached more land the next morning, I ended up seeing some new wildlife. I went to take a look, but soon realized that these were elephant seals. And then I learned not to get close to them. Not friendly, not friendly. Yeah, I just returned to my ship and kept sailing. But honestly, by this point, I was getting a bit tired of sailing. So the next day, when I checked my GPS compass again, I decided to go ahead and dock my ship. I still didn't know how far the mountain was, but I didn't really care. Yeah, I just wanted to do some driving. So I headed across the ice until the compass straightened out. From there, I just continued forward. I kept driving through the snowy landscape and had made it a good distance before realizing something really annoying. I had left my bed on the ship. So I turned my vehicle around and reluctantly headed back. After collecting my bed, I then returned to my Antarctic driving. And that night, I saw a really cool sunset. See, I found these modded vehicles before in other videos, but I always have trees or rocks in the way. However, here in the infinitely snowy landscape, I can go as fast as I want. And I certainly did. But right as I was about to hit a new high speed, a large wall of stone and snow appeared before me. As I drove around it, the compass seemed to continuously point towards it, telling me that this is Mount Vinson. At almost 5,000 meters, or 16,000 feet tall, Mount Vinson is the tallest mountain in Antarctica, earning itself a spot among the legendary 7 summits. The peaks surrounding Mount Vinson consist of the next 5 highest mountains in Antarctica, giving them the collective name Vinson Massive. Only around 1,200 people have braved the Antarctic cold to summit this mountain, but even more remarkably, there has not been a single casualty in doing so. This earns Mount Vinson a special place among the ranks of the infamous 7 summits. I parked my vehicle nearby and then went to follow the lead of the compass. Only I didn't know what I was about to find. Up ahead, there seemed to be 2 orange structures. As I approached them, I could tell that they were the shredded ruins of some tents. Within these ruins was the backpack that Edward No. 2 had mentioned, so I took a look. And sure enough, the loot was pretty good. Yeah, the iron alone made this objective worth it. I also found this book and quill. Okay, it's time for my narration voice. Our tents were violently shaken by the Antarctic winds. After a while, we were able to continue our summit process, but cautiously. Day 2. We found some strange footprints on this side of the slope. Progress continued as normal. Day 3. We saw something really strange today. I want to leave, but the others are fixated on summiting this mountain. We need to leave. As the sun set, I tore apart the tents even further for wool. Next morning, I decided that I was going to summit Mount Vinson. After all, I had a goal of ascending all 7 summits on this channel. So far, I have just summited Everest, which doesn't really make sense. But yeah, for longtime viewers, I've decided that I will actually be redoing Kilimanjaro and Denali in the future, as those 2 were from my earliest videos on the channel. And yeah, let's just say they're not up to the quality that I want to maintain now. But with that being said, I set off to summit it. I was already quite high up the mountain, so it didn't really take long at all. However, when I reached the top, I was not expecting this. I knew that this was the folklore for this episode, but I wanted to see just how dangerous it was. So I very carefully approached it. Hello? Yeah, see, you look friendly, right? Oh. Hi. Oh! Okay, okay. Okay, okay. Ooh, oh. Eventually, I lost it, but at the cost of some health. I now quickly ran to get my vehicle, and even though it took a while to find, when I did see it, I drove away instantly. Luckily for me, I didn't see it at all today. Eventually, I reached the coast again. But before heading back to my ship, I decided to mine for some stone. I then reached my base that afternoon, and that's when I made a really stupid mistake. I've just lost my tractor. I couldn't even save it because there was ice covering the water. So, yeah, I got back on my boat and just got to doing some base work. This work continued into the next day, where I added to the sail, crafted a new engine, and then finally set off for the next station. Now with Rothera's objective complete, the next objective will be at South Korea's Jang Bogo Station. I sailed south for the next few days, and over the course of these days, I discovered that Edward is actually Edwarda, I suppose. Yeah, this egg was laid. I don't really know why this keeps happening to me. This happened in Bolivia as well. Anyways, I was now beginning to sail down to the bottom of the continent. As I sailed along the coast, I ended up spotting some more elephant seals. However, not long after that, my entire environment was changed, as a huge wall of ice appeared in front of me. Judging by the sheer size of it, I knew that it had to be the Ross Ice Shelf. This is Antarctica's largest ice shelf, and the largest body of floating ice on Earth. But what's even more incredible is that all of this that you see is only 10% of the entire ice shelf. Upon its initial discovery in 1841 by James Clark Ross, it was called the Great Ice Barrier. That's because James Ross was on a mission to figure out where exactly the South Pole was. And, well, this was quite the barrier to that expedition. And while James Ross wasn't successful in his mission, he did end up also discovering something on the east side of the ice shelf. Mount Erebus. This is the largest active volcano in Antarctica, and it is the southernmost active volcano in the world. Together, these two spectacular anomalies certainly make their mark on the icy continent. I decided to climb up the side of the ice shelf. Once I was up here, I just took a look around and noticed that it was really flat. A part of me wanted to jump down into the water, but I knew that probably wasn't the wisest decision. So I headed back to my ship and continued sailing, knowing that the South Korean station wasn't too far away. Today, I saw a lot of wildlife around the shelf, as I first spotted these Adelie penguins. And then I watched these orcas attack some leopard seals. Oh, and Edwarda's egg has now hatched. So, welcome to the world, Griffle. Yeah, I'm giving him a dumb name. Anyways, I continued to sail along the ice shelf, now a bit frustrated that I haven't had any fuel in my engines for quite some time. But the next morning, I had arrived at Mount Erebus. As I passed the lively coast, I spotted what looked to be a cave entrance. So I hopped down to explore. Only as I made my way up towards it, I got stuck in the powdered snow. I immediately went to run. Only I ran right into another one. Nope, not another one. So I just went down to the coast and got away from all the wildlife. After healing up a bit, I then entered the cave. Thanks to its volcanic nature, Mount Erebus has multiple caves that have been naturally carved right through the ice. Within these caves, it can reach around 20 degrees Celsius, or almost 70 degrees Fahrenheit. However, this is not what I discovered when I touched this water. Yeah, I towered up just in time. As it turns out, the water in here is really cold. So cold that it hurt to touch it. So yeah, I now had to carefully maneuver my way through this cavern. As I continued through the cave the next day, I decided that mining around the cave might just be the best idea. Yeah, apparently not. But on a good note, I did find some coal. Soon enough, I saw another opening. So I approached it, knowing that I would definitely be taking a different route back. Only as I exited the cave, I saw something equally as concerning. So basically, these black flags mark where there's a crevice, or crevasse, or however you want to say it. And, yeah, you don't want to walk near them. And it looks like there's some sort of, something or other over there. I don't know. So yeah, we're going to walk around them. As the sun began to set, I went to approach the structure in the distance. But I was extremely careful, avoiding every black flag that I could. Eventually, I reached the object, and it was just an Antarctic rover. Oh, and the remnants of one. Next morning, I decided to head straight for the ice shelf. Okay, that's one. Okay. 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 This was really bad. I didn't have any water to heal myself with, which meant that I would have to head all the way back to my ship on one heart. I soon resurfaced, before then collecting some blocks. I carefully jumped from block to block, making my way towards the ice shelf. Eventually, once the snow was thick enough, I ran. Now I was at the edge of the ice shelf, but I still had to make it all the way down. So, I slowly and carefully made my way down the Ross ice shelf, before reaching the shore and getting right in my boat. I reached my ship the next morning. After that fun experience, I was happy to be sailing again. Only I soon became quite confused at the appearance of another emperor penguin. Yeah, I was a bit concerned, in all honesty. But anyways, I sailed my way beyond the Ross ice shelf, and was now just navigating through a field of icebergs. Finally, the next day, I spotted the station. I ran up the snowy slope and made my way over to the large blue building. Only before entering it, I decided to search the sheds around it. And that was a really good idea, as I found a stash of wood and some great loot. So I collected all the wood and brought it back to my ship. Now the Jang Bogo station is definitely one of these smaller stations, as it can only hold up to 62 people. However, it is operated year-round, and is known for its technological innovation. I went to experience this innovation myself on day 43. As I entered the station, I quickly spotted my objective, but I went to look around a bit first. I found some iron in a chest, and just saw a lot of rooms. Let's chat, shall we? Hello, traveler. Would you mind helping us with something? We are trying to analyze data about the presence of iron 3 oxide in colder climates. The only way we can do this is if we had a bucket sample of the blood water from the nearby Blood Falls. It's just northeast of here in the McMurdo Dry Valleys. Good luck. Sure thing. I don't really get an option, so I have to say yes. So essentially, my objective is to head up here to the McMurdo Dry Valleys, where I will find Blood Falls. I'm then meant to collect a bucket from the falls, and return it to the station, simple enough. So with that in mind, I headed northeast on foot, as I didn't see any vehicles around. I traveled for the rest of the day, and didn't really see much apart from some mountains. These mountains became a lot more interesting the next day though, as less and less snow was appearing on them. However, when I went to go ashore, I saw a barren landscape ahead of me, with very little snow at all. The McMurdo Dry Valleys, appropriately named thanks to the region's lack of precipitation, high amounts of salt, and barren nature to the landscape. These valleys are known to collectively be one of the driest places in the world. In fact, according to NASA, scientists consider the dry valleys to be the closest of any terrestrial environment to Mars. Here, there are no plants or animals, just desert. But if you head a little south, you can find another wonder, Antarctica's Blood Falls. Here, every year, about 100 scientists get together and sacrifice... Oh, wait, that can't be right. No, but you see, Blood Falls really does get this bloody appearance from something not quite so horrific. Yeah, it's just iron oxide in the water. And iron oxide is more commonly known as rust. But I still had to find the bloody falls. So I climbed higher into the lifeless valleys that very evening. I made my way up and over a valley the next morning. As I descended, I spotted a glacier in the distance. And yes, there was a waterfall attached to it. And sure enough, it was Blood Falls. I quickly crafted a bucket, and then got a sample. Now I just had to head back and give it to the researcher. So I climbed up and over the glacier, and then headed for the shore. I made it back to the station the next day. I have your bucket of blood, aren't you happy? Yep. Oh, wait a minute. I got a cage? Oh, shellfish trap. Rain collector. Thermoregulator. Really? As soon as I had made it back to my ship, I placed my new blocks, although I don't think they did much. Anyways, I also now had some fuel to put in the engines. So with that, I set off for the next station on my journey. So far, I've sailed my way down the peninsula, completed my objective at Rothera Station, sailed along the Ross Ice Shelf, and I've now completed Jang Bogo's objective, which means that next up, I'll be traveling to India's Bharati Station. But that's a pretty good distance away, so I just got to sailing. The next leg consisted of the most sailing yet. During this time, I made some improvements to my ship, but it did also give me time to think about what I want to say to all of you. After all, this is my 100,000 subscriber special. So, take it away, real-life me. I feel like I've been put on the spot a little bit, but it doesn't really matter, because what I have to say is pretty straightforward, and that is just thank you. Thank you to all of you. This right here is because of all of you. And yes, I have the color pink pulled up because it looks good on my face. But yeah, this channel only works because you all are interested. I mean, who would want to watch a video about 100 days in Saskatchewan, right? You, clearly. And that's because you all, like myself, are curious about the world. And that's my favorite part of this channel. We're all like-minded in some way. But that being said, I of course also want to thank my team. My team is amazing. Everybody on my team is extremely talented at what they do. And these videos would not be produced with such a high level of quality if it weren't for them. But that being said, I have said what I need to say. And again, thank you to all of you. But you all probably want to get back to the video. So, without further ado, let's continue it. Day 53 was a stormy one. Yeah, the wind and snow just kept rattling my ship. But I pushed on. Today I also saw some orcas. But it wasn't until later in the afternoon that I saw something truly amazing. That's right, before me was a blue whale. This whale needs no introduction, as it's the largest animal to have ever existed on this planet. These incredible whales have hearts the size of cars, and tongues that weigh as much as an elephant. And with the loudest call of any animal on this planet, it just feels like the blue whale exists to break animal kingdom records. These guys can grow around 80 to 100 feet, or 24 to 30 meters. You can find them roaming almost all of the world's oceans, but they can be commonly found down here in Antarctica. However, perhaps common isn't the right word, as unfortunately these whales are endangered due to the vast history of the whaling industry, just like I mentioned with Grytviken from earlier. Regardless, these unreal animals appropriately represent the spectacle of the blue world. However, I was still not experiencing that spectacle for myself, as I sailed through yet another day of stormy weather. It was here when I realized that I must be starting to sail up the eastern coast of the continent, as this weather indicated that I might be in Commonwealth Bay, known to be the windiest place on Earth. Either way, I pushed on, as Bharati still had to be quite some ways away. Although the next day, I was reminded to continue this journey with caution. With yet another day taken up by bad weather, I was beginning to worry that my travels would come off as a bit dull, but Antarctica soon reassured me by giving me the silhouette of something unnatural that evening. I went to go and check it out the next morning. The violent winds made it difficult for me to even reach the shore, but once I did, I had to walk parallel to the buildings in order to reach them. Inside it was quite dark, so I crafted some torches and took a look around. It seemed as though I was in some sort of old cabin, but everything was explained to me when I opened this chest and saw this journal. These are Mawson's huts, a pair of shacks crafted by the Australasian Antarctic Expedition of 1911 to 1914. The expedition was led by Sir Douglas Mawson, who alongside James Ross and Ernest Shackleton is known to be one of the great explorers of the southern continent. However, this particular expedition would demonstrate the true brutality of Antarctica, as Mawson's two companions would unfortunately not make it to the end of the expedition. With no other option, Mawson returned here, to his main base in Commonwealth Bay, only to see that the relief ship had just departed, forcing him to stay another year, isolated in Antarctica. There was nothing here for me, so I decided to leave. I sailed through one more day of stormy weather, and yeah, there just wasn't really much for me to do. I could only keep sailing. Which is why on day 58, I decided that I needed to craft 2 more engines. After all, I do have a lot of iron. So I headed to the shore and started collecting some stone. I then got right to smelting. And yeah, I now have a miniature penguin colony in my ship. I filled my new engines with whatever fuel I had, and was able to continue up the coast of Antarctica slightly faster. I continued to sail through the nights in order to reach Bharati faster. Oh, and by the way, Antarctica does not at all have a normal day-night cycle like it does here. No, essentially, for half the year, the sun is up for all 24 hours of the day, and for the other half of the year, it's completely dark. Anyways, as I contemplated the sun, I also added a bit to the ship's mast. However, on day 60, I would come across something really strange. Yeah, it was a base, but it definitely wasn't Bharati. Little did I know, this is Australia's Casey Station, although it looks like it's seen better days. I looked around the station and found some lanterns in the shed. I then saw this cargo truck, that looked like it was destroyed. That trail of destruction led right to the building, where I was met with a grim scene inside. Only, when I went to explore this main building, I found out why pretty quickly. I had to be extremely careful. I slowly moved into the room next to it, and hid as I made my way to some chests and barrels, which were empty. Yeah, it didn't see me, so I very carefully left. Naturally, I got right back on my ship and kept sailing. And you know what? I think it's about time that I tell you what that creature is. The Ningen is said to be a creature that lives in and around Antarctica. Whether it be on land or within the icy waters, this giant cryptid has characteristics similar to humans, as the Japanese word Ningen roughly translates to humanity or human-like. However, the Ningen is one of the newest cryptids that I will ever cover on this channel, and is the only cryptid of Antarctica. See, its origins can be traced back to the early 2000s, where it was brought up on a Japanese textboard site known as 2chan. But with so little of Antarctica's oceans and coastlines explored, it's certainly fun to think that something like this just might be out there. I sailed on up the eastern coast of the continent, and while I hate to summarize another chunk of time, there really just isn't much going on in this part of Antarctica. See, with a continent almost twice the size of Australia, there's just so much here that hasn't been seen or explored by humans. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to really understand just how large and isolated this continent is. This is why I was incredibly happy to finally see Bharati Station on day 64. I was curious to see what my objective will be for this one, but I had an idea of what wonder it might relate to. Anyways, before entering, I took a look around. Oh, hello, you. I then headed in and looked for my objective. I didn't see as many people in this one, and it definitely took longer to find the objective. Hello there, traveler. I can see you're quite the adventurer, so would you mind helping me? As you can see, I am the station botanist, and I'm trying to conduct a very specific research regarding glowing moss blocks. These blocks are only available at the bottom of Lake Vostok. Once again, I only have one option. I can only say sure. Alright. Between you and me, can you keep this quest a secret? Russia's Vostok station is operating above it. That means you'll have to do some sneaking when you're over there. Okay, well, that seems slightly illegal, but global affairs can be disregarded because I will be getting a reward, so. I then stayed here for the night. Now, the Bharati Station is run by India and can house up to 72 people. This base is often praised for its design and its amenities, as alongside the standard Antarctic living, you can also find automated AC and even a sauna. But I had no time to enjoy either, as the next morning, I set off straight for the lake. See, my objective is to head down to Lake Vostok, where I will somehow enter the lake and gather a sample of this glowing moss block. Yeah, I still wasn't sure how exactly I'd be doing that. I ended up driving for the entire day, and even decided to drive into the night. However, I eventually stopped for the night. But before I went to sleep, I looked at the eerie Antarctic landscape. There's really just nothing. Oh, hi. Okay. The Ningen was still there the next morning, so I decided to try something bold. Yeah, never mind. Not doing that again. Nope, I just kept driving. But once again, I had forgotten to refill my water, which meant I couldn't heal. Luckily for me, it wasn't long before I reached the lake. Lake Vostok. This is the largest subglacial lake in the world. This means that the lake is buried under a substantial amount of ice. In fact, the surface of the lake wasn't even reached until 2012, when a drill was used to clear a passage down into the lake in order to collect samples of the water. When these samples were brought back up, the Russian scientists were amazed to discover multiple new types of bacterial life. See, that's what makes this lake fascinating, as who knows what else is under this ice. I found some water coming out of this ice mound, and I used it to refill my bottles. I then healed up, and began my search for a way into the lake. After all, the lake is very, very far under this ice, meaning that there is probably an entrance somewhere on the lake. So I drove around the perimeter, and the next day, I spotted a small settlement here. There was someone among the tents, and while I know I have to be stealthy, I didn't know if he was an enemy or not. So I slowly approached him. Greetings, traveler. What brings you to our station? I have two options for this one. Inspections, or I like ice. Yeah, okay. Should I try that again with the other one? I see. Well, watch out for the men who are patrolling the area. They don't take kindly to strangers. I proceeded across the ice, following the trail of lights. That's when I spotted something in the distance. However, soon after, my entire situation changed. Now I had to not only look out for the guards, but also the many Ningen that had spawned on the lake. I carefully approached the structure, and saw that it was a drill. Next morning, the Ningen were still here, so I really had no other option but to jump. As I swam around, I found the moss samples pretty quickly. But see, the difficult part came when I had to try and get more air. Yeah, it was really hard to find the hole in the ice. But I went back down anyways, and was able to collect a sample. Only this time, I was properly lost. Yeah, I made it just in time. And towered up. As I resurfaced, I realized that now I didn't have any food. Yeah, this was rough. I just need to get out of here. So, I did. I got right to my vehicle and headed back to the station. After reaching Bharati midday, I headed in and went to the researcher. Yeah, you're gonna take this back. I don't want it. These rewards are actually really good. Now that's nice. That's what was Neptune's lungs. Allows you to breathe underwater. That is really nice. Okay. But I found something even better when I went to explore the base some more. Yeah, in the boiler room, I found a ton of blast furnaces. This was great, as I could use these for more ship engines. I made it back to my ship that evening. I then sailed through the next day, as now with Bharati's objective complete, my next objective will be at the Princess Elizabeth Station, run by Belgium, and that one is not too far away. But on day 71, I decided that I wanted to speed up the process anyways. After all, I have a lot of engines that I can craft, so I headed to the shore in order to collect some stone. I found a lot of coal, and then I got the stone that I needed. But when I went to head back, I saw something in the water. It was coming right for me, so I ran back up onto the ice, but it followed. I headed back into the water and rowed to my ship. This turned out to be a bad idea. A horde of tentacles had emerged from the depths of the icy waters, and they weren't going anywhere. Yeah, I was panicking right about now, as all I could really do was sail. Next morning, I knew that I had to craft the engines and hope I was faster than the thing attacking me. So I carefully headed down to my lower deck and got to smelting. I was able to make a lot of them, and after placing them, I filled them with whatever fuel I had. This gave me a slight edge over the creature, as I was now slowly gaining distance. By the next day, it was out of sight. I was now making my way across the top of Antarctica, but I still couldn't take full advantage of my ship engines, as I didn't have any fuel at all. However, I had another problem. This station does not lie on the coast. No, it's inland, meaning that there is no easy way for me to find it. All I do know is that the station is just south of an ice shelf. So after another day of icy sailing, on day 75, I noticed that I had been sailing along an ice shelf for a little while now. With nothing else to indicate where the station is, I went ahead and docked my ship. Before I set off, I did some fishing. I then climbed up the ice shelf and headed into the Antarctic abyss. I continued through the infinite expanse, hoping that I would spot the base in the distance. But I didn't. No, I just came across some mountains. I climbed to the top of them in order to take a look around. But yeah, absolutely nothing. My hunger bar was now depleting, and I had no food. In other words, I was in a really bad position. However, that evening, I spotted some more mountains. Only these looked very different. Yeah, you have no idea how happy I was to see these mountains, because I recognized these immediately as a wonder. The Dragalsski Mountains, a group of mountains and peaks jutting out of the Antarctic ice and snow. But what makes these mountains special is their incredibly jagged look. See, scientists actually have a name for this spiky mountain peak. They're called nunataks, which are exposed parts of mountains and peaks that are otherwise buried by an ice sheet or glacier. These mountains are named after yet another Antarctic explorer, Erich von Dragalski, who led the first German Antarctic expedition of 1901 to 1903. Today you can take part in a luxury expedition that includes climbing one of these peaks. The trip markets the experience as being able to climb a mountain that no one has climbed before, for a price of 45,000 USD. After checking Google Maps the next day, I realized that the Princess Elizabeth Station isn't actually too far from these mountains. I just had to head in a straight line, essentially. However, as I climbed along the mountains, I ended up finding something that looked really weird. I went to check it out and found a ton of glass. Oh, and this dispenser. Inside, there were some rather interesting items, including this book that said weather data, but it was just a bunch of binary. So now I headed in the general direction of where the station would be from these mountains. However, my hunger was only getting lower. I eventually decided to turn up my render distance, but yeah, still nothing. So I did it again a little later. Yeah, I ran right for the station. Well, until I couldn't. But I was able to make it inside by nightfall. Now, the Princess Elizabeth Station is an impressive one. Run by Belgium, this station is the world's first zero-emission research station. This station is one of the smaller ones, as it can house anywhere from 25 to 40 people. But its technological efficiency absolutely makes up for that. The next morning, I went to find my objective. Hello there, traveler. You seem to be properly equipped for the climate here. Very impressive. Yeah, so I had unfortunately already completed the objective, as this station was meant to have me explore the Dragalsski Mountains, not the other way around. Alright, I'll go get it. This is so stupid. Oh, look, Liam, I got you your weather book. Yeah. That's what I figured had happened. That's pretty funny. I got a water canteen. Very helpful. Snowshoes. This is the most useful thing that I've gotten so far. But I clearly didn't mind. In fact, now I had another issue on my hands. I couldn't find any food within this station. I genuinely don't know if I'm just missing it, but yeah, I didn't see anything to fill my hunger bar with. So I took a lot of wood instead. And then I reluctantly headed back out into the Antarctic. This time, it was going to be a lot easier, as I just have to head north until I reach water. Which I did the next day. So I hopped right in my boat and rode along the ice shelf, hoping to find my ship. However, I didn't find it until that afternoon, but I was able to finish out the day with some much needed fishing. I filled my engines with wood the next morning, and then set off for my final station. See, I had now traveled down the Antarctic Peninsula and completed Rothera's objective, traveled along the Ross Ice Shelf and explored Blood Falls on South Korea's behalf, traveled to the isolated Lake Vostok for Bharati Station, and had inadvertently collected weather data in the Dragalsski Mountains for Belgium. Now I had one more station to go, and that is Argentina's Belgrano II. As I sailed along the top of Antarctica, I also noticed that I only have one penguin left. Yeah, I really don't know how this happened, but I'm officially declaring that this one is Griffle. I think that's why I named it, right? Yeah, Griffle. Anyways, I now entered my final stretch of Antarctic sailing as I crossed over the top of the continent. While doing so, I devised a plan to capture and defeat a Ningen, because I know some of you would be disappointed if I didn't at least give it a try. So on day 84, I headed to land, and I began my plan. See, the only Ningen weakness that I could think of is its height, so I dug into the ground and made a large pit, deep enough to hopefully keep it inside. I also added a small doorway for myself, so that I could escape. And the next day, I got to work on the actual trap part of it. I decided that the suffocation method would be the most efficient. After all, it worked in the Philippines, so who's to say it won't work here? I built up a large system of signs, and eventually added concrete powder on top of them. And soon enough, my trap was ready, and the sun was setting. I then went out to find one. As I ran, I realized something. I was about to run out of hunger. And then I did. I immediately dug into the ground and escaped. After sneaking away from the Ningen, I did some fishing and ate what I could, before heading back over to it. Now I led it into the pit. Only there was one problem. It refused to go underneath the trap. Yeah, it just sat there and stared at me. So I headed to the surface, and decided that I would take care of this one personally. I crafted a shield and approached it. And as soon as I could hit it, I did. Multiple times. Luckily for me, the pit was deep enough, as it wasn't able to retaliate, so I just kept attacking, and attacking, until eventually, I had defeated it. As the sun rose over the southern continent, I got back on my ship and continued to my final stop. I came across the final station on day 87. I then found my objective pretty quickly. Hello, welcome to Belgrano II. I see that you have some weapons and armor on you. Oh, should I put them away? That's not gonna happen. No, actually, I was just thinking that you might be up for a rather daunting task. See, we had an accident a few days ago where we dropped a cooler holding an emperor penguin egg in the ocean. However, no one wants to go and get it. Why not? Well, you see, the team has seen something off the coast. They say it's the Colossal Squid. Okay. Would you be willing to get the egg? We managed to get a buoy in the water above the cooler. Yeah, so essentially, I have to go out and find this buoy, where there is supposedly a crate carrying an emperor penguin egg on the ocean floor below it. Only I also have to watch out for a colossal squid as I do this. In other words, this is my absolute worst nightmare. I headed back to my ship and fished through the evening in preparation for the objective. Now, the Belgrano II station is an upgrade from the previous Belgrano station, founded in 1955. This upgrade was made in 1979, and to this day, Belgrano II is the southernmost permanent Argentine base on Antarctica. It houses 19 people, and is operated by the Argentine Army. Next morning, I wondered to myself why the Army couldn't just take care of this. Oh, of course it had to be me. Either way, I sailed out to the buoy. And then I cautiously made my way into the water. This is gonna be bad. This is not gonna be good. Not gonna be good. I absolutely hated this. But then I remembered that I had a chest plate that gave me underwater breathing. So I just went for it. Ooh, no, that is not, it's not my favorite. Okay. I immediately got in a boat and rowed away. I ended up at this nearby iceberg, but yeah, I had lost it, which isn't a good thing. Where is it? I knew that this was the same creature from earlier, so I had to be very careful. Eventually, I calmed down and headed back out. Okay. Now we go. That was a bad idea. Okay. Yeah, this was consistently proving to be the absolute worst thing I have done in this series. I hated this so much. However, after leading the squid away, I checked the waters again and just went for it. Oh, I hate this. Where's the crate? Alright, come on, come on, come on. Yep, that's good. As soon as I got the egg, I swam up. Thankfully, I made it onto the ship. The Colossal Squid, one of the most elusive creatures on this planet. In fact, just a few weeks prior to this video's release, a colossal squid was filmed for the very first time ever. Now, it was a young colossal squid, but these guys are called colossal for a reason. The colossal squid is thought to grow up to anywhere from 20 to 46 feet, or 6 to 14 meters. But that's just it. So little is known about this squid, due to the fact that they're incredibly hard to find, as it can be found in the depths of the Antarctic oceans. Regardless, the colossal squid in this video is obviously much more aggressive and villainous than its real-life counterpart, as in reality, there would be no way that I would even come across this creature. A creature mysteriously hidden within the depths of Antarctica. The next morning, I headed over to the station. Here, take your egg. Take it. Just take the egg. Great. Before leaving, I collected whatever wood I could find. And on day 90, I filled my engines and set off for the final part of this voyage. Back to South Georgia. Anyways, as the last of Antarctica's icebergs faded into the distance, I said goodbye to the icy continent. Over the next few days, I quickly ran out of fuel and made my way to South Georgia. As I do, I'll go ahead and rate the difficulty of Antarctica. Antarctica gave me challenges that I haven't faced elsewhere, like the deadly crevices, the hypothermia-inducing water, and wildlife both on land and within the ocean. With everything taken into account, I have no choice but to give Antarctica the same rating that I gave the Sahara Desert, a daunting 9 out of 10. I finally finished my voyage on the afternoon of day 96, as I had once again reached Grytviken. This means that I just have a few days to finish up my base in time for base review on day 99. So the next morning, I collected some wood and started adding accents. It was strange being back in South Georgia, like really strange. But what's even stranger is that Griffle is now gone. Yeah, I really don't know what happened to my penguins this episode. Moving on from that, the next day, I did just a few cleaning things before deciding that my base is ready. Yeah, there wasn't much else I wanted to add. So I just waited for base review. On day 99, I woke up and assessed each part of my base. Let's start with the interior. This is probably the weakest part of the base, as I just didn't have a lot of room to work with. It still serves its purpose, but it's nothing special. Now for the exterior, which I really like. Yeah, the triangular sail was a great idea, although I do have to take a few points away since the design wasn't original. Either way, that's all I can really rate on this ship, so I give it a solid 7 out of 10. But there's still one more day. I woke up on day 100 and decided to sail my ship back into the bay that I spawned in. As I did, I thought about the last 100 days and just what kind of a journey I had experienced. See, Antarctica is a place that very few people have seen with their own eyes. In the grand tapestry of human history, Antarctica's discovery might as well have occurred yesterday, as its icy shores weren't officially spotted until 1820. That means that everything we know about this continent has come from the last 200 years of history, from the brave explorers who sat on the brink of death just to tell the world a little bit more about these southern shores. And what we do know about this continent is absolutely incredible. From the wildlife, to the geography, to the very size of the continent. There was no better location for me to cover for my 100,000 subscriber special, because there truly is nowhere else on this planet quite like Antarctica. Alright, with all of that being said, it is about that time. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next episode. I can't get into my bed. Here.